Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spell Collection with the weekly comic book roundup, and we'll be moving on to this week's X-Men titles, Miscellaneous Marvel, and DC titles, starting with Excalibur, number 8. Where we left off, Excalibur had been tasked by Apocalypse to bring him the skulls of the 5 remaining werewolves, an extra-dimensional race native to the Mojoverse. The last 5 were trapped on Earth and were being kept in the London Zoo. However, when Excalibur arrived to basically take them, it turned out that Cullen Bloodstone had bought them for a hunt. Excalibur managed to get invited to said hunt, and the hunt began fairly well. However, Bloodstone took offense to the fact that the mutant team was, in his eyes, using their powers to their advantage to basically make the hunt all about, basically to succeed in the hunt more so than he was. And so he declared that instead of the hunt was now changed to where they would hunt, Excalibur hunt the werewolves, and he would hunt Excalibur. Also, his demonic side had begun to show through. So we pick up with a couple of the werewolves having caught a rabbit when the earth begins to shake, and so they scatter. Of course, the earth is shaking because of none other than Richter. And, well, yeah. Excalibur promptly lays the smackdown on Cullen, and opts for diplomacy and to rein in his demonic side. So over dinner, he proposes some changes to things. Perhaps, he keeps his demonic side in, to make the hunt a bit more fair. He will keep his demonic side in check, and Excalibur doesn't get to use their powers. However, Jubilee promptly says, here's the thing. You have a demon. And even if she's not, making fireworks, she's still a mutant. And Betsy agrees that, it's a little bit different that, it's a little bit different for, between being demonically inclined and being a mutant. There's also a letter to Cullen from Ruben Brousseau of Covenacaba, basically saying, hey, look, with what's going on with the mutants, if you need assistance with them, you can call us instead of MI13 because, we're not, we're basically, they're an anti-mutant group, and MI13 is not. So that night, after dinner, Jubilee is sleeping, but Richter's having trouble sleeping, so he goes outside to, commune with the dirt. He comes across Cullen, who's talking on the phone. As he's presumably talking to Covenacaba, explaining that, his sister, also Bloodstone, has reached out to MI13 in the past, but they've got mutants on staff, and he's not sure if he trusts them when it comes to this. Yeah, he said that he might feel safer with an arcane protector. And while may not necessarily agree with all the stuff the Coven says, he just needs to let someone know that Captain Brenner and her team are here in case something should happen to him. However, he spies Richter. They talk a bit, and it does come up that Richter's a druid, and he kind of says, he's not so sure he's a druid, but he knows some druids. He vibes with druids. Well, Colin's last boyfriend was super ancient and Celtic, and probably knows some of the same druids that Richter does. Though he also adds that perhaps boyfriend is a bit too generous of a term for this person. They talk a bit, sharing a flash between them, and Cullen comes on to him, but Cullen kisses Richter. However, Richter eventually pushes him away. Richter goes back in the house to talk to Betsy and says, "Hey, I'm pretty sure Cullen was talking with Coven Akaba, saying what happened, and so it's decided that maybe they should just get the rest of the team up and hunt down the war wolves now," which is what they do. Rogue uses the pelt that she has to turn into one, and her and Gambit go off in search of them. However, meanwhile, the team's activities have alerted. Cullen has been alerted to the team's activities, and Gambit comes running back with a werewolf on his tail, and Cullen Bloodstone chasing after the werewolf. However, and he's also going even more demonic, but yeah, he gets knocked out by Rogue, and Excalibur takes the rest of the skulls. However, they discover apparently one of the werewolves gave birth, and so Betsy, Captain Britain, eventually convinces Apocalypse to let that one live. And his initial reluctance is the idea that he requested the heads of the remaining werewolves, not just 5. And in the end, Apocalypse says that mercy is its own kind of power. Perhaps just the 5 adult ones will suffice. And so back on Krakoa, Betsy takes the last werewolf to Rachel to have her look after it. Though Rachel ends up having to turn out partying with, or having a drink with Betsy because, well, she's got a pet to take care of. Big responsibility. And it gets brought up that Rachel needs a proper job. It is then explained that she will have one in Pages of X Factor number 1. And that is where the issue ends. Moving on to Marauders number 9. Where we left off, Kate Pride had the Red Queen had been killed. Bishop had recovered her body, and a little bit of revenge is taken by Iceman on on some of the Verendi troops. Of course, what's currently unknown to everyone is that the size-changing villain Yellow Jacket is hiding within Pyro in a shrunken submarine, and B, the Black King of the Hellfire Trading Corporation, Sebastian Shaw, was responsible for the death of Kate Pride. So the issue begins with the Marauder returning to Krakoa, and Pyro getting off, starting to part of their room, but apparently, can't. Just one drink because they got to ship back out. However, Jean is waiting for him on Firebird. The two of them make out. The car drives off with Freebird playing, and it's something that is being concocted by Emma Frost for the purposes of Yellow Jacket. And so it seems that Yellow Jacket utilizes the sub's enlarging function to, enlarge outside of, and basically splatter Pyro all over Bishop and Emma Frost. Then Yellow Jacket climbs out and promptly blasts Emma in the face, shrinks down, seemingly goes into the water while being shot at by Bishop. Of course, it's all a ruse. Magneto basically pulls the sub out of Pyro's body, while as Yellow Jacket is asleep. His memories of the mission are wiped, and he heads back towards Madripoor. And so Emma and Pyro psychically crash a dinner being held by the Hominis Verendi, with Pyro using Pyro making it look as though he's using the candles to attack all of them, set them on fire, but it was done psychically, and it still hurt. It still registers in their minds that they were hurt, though their bodies do not show it. However, Emma says, "Hey, we got the message across. Now they have pressing matters." Apparently, the Five are having trouble resurrecting Kate. And it would appear that Sebastian Shaw was right. And no one knows what the problem is. Back on Madripoor, Lockheed rises from the bed of the young girl that found him, flies out the window, first brings her back part of a fish, and then flies off towards Krakoa. Now, while that is where the issue ends, there is still a bit of pressing importance. Dispatch from the X desk. I've been cleared to resume full duties after my security review, updating the likely terror attack being plotted by a new group called Hominis Verendi out of Madripoor. I think it's a strong possibility that a large batch of Krakoa medicines will be laced with poison in an effort to undermine confidence in Krakoa's only meaningful export. I sent a message to a Madriporian and their security services through a back channel. What I learned is disturbing. It seems that Verendi is flush with cash and has basically bought out the federal government of Madripoor. It's unclear to what extent the country's security apparatus is being paid to look the other way or participate. In either event, the outcome seems that Verendi is the new sheriff in town. Local triads are only too happy to take the foreign money and essentially rent out the governmental offices to the anti-mutant extremists. My source says that Verendi has no interest in local governance of any kind and is leaving the triads to continue their domination of the island nation. It's a mutually beneficial relationship that has enriched both bad actors. What is unclear is how the Madriporian royal family fits into this new equation. They have not been seen since Verendi's hostile takeover, though my source indicates they're likely under house arrest in the royal palace. There are conflicting rumors that they have fled the island or were murdered. It remains an open question that I will keep an eye on. We probably need to beef up our resources on both the X-Desk and our friends on the Madripoor beat. Underscoring the lack of subtlety in Verendi's moves. Freshly minted Madriporian United Nations Ambassador Donald Pierce is traveling to New York City this week with a diplomatic passport for his first General Assembly. Chen Zhao is an intriguing figure in all of this. She was born in China but was living in Taiwan. Her family has one of the most powerful shipping concerns in Asia, and she was publicly humiliated when her missing husband was revealed to be in the Order of X, a cult that worships mutants as gods. If she is not Verendi, she is certainly aligning with them and has been seen visiting many government offices in recent days. She seems to be a central figure in the reorganization of the island's government after the Verendi acquisition. My colleague at the company, the CIA, Jeff Bannister, from Wolverine, gave me a heads up that evidently the Krakoa medicines or flowers, I'm not clear on which yet, can be reworked into some kind of narcotic because, of course, we can't just have nice things. I haven't seen any evidence from Hellfire Trading or Krakoa that would indicate the mutants have any part in that illicit activity. I do hope it doesn't become a problem that impedes the import of these medicines. On another matter, I can confirm there is a small mutant enclave living in a gated community in Rio Verde, Arizona. They just seem to be enjoying themselves. Hellfire Trading has also established a charity dedicated to promoting health and well-being for all the people of Earth. Other than the financial filings, that's all I have. As part of our normal surveillance package on Hellfire Trading's impressive financials and internet usage, a new website registered to the company was purchased this week. HellfireGala.com was parked and currently has no content, but it seems Emma Frost is planning a party. Also, one other bit of prose. After the submarine with Yellow Jacket is removed from Pyro, Magneto states that Pyro should be debriefed by X-Force. So, here we go. X-Force probe, subject the Pyro incident. Author, Beast. Pyro reported for debriefing, during which we confirmed that no state secrets had been compromised, despite Pyro's insistence that they had been. We eventually agreed to move him along, but quietly we're glad this happened so that we can be proactive against similar but more sophisticated intrusions. The Pyro incident, as we've come to call it, has illustrated how we need to address scale in the defense of the island. Mutant refugees rescued by Hellfire Trading should enter Krakoa via our transit system, and our teams on the ships will need regular check-ins with telepaths. I'll sort it. Magneto's point about a telepathic deployment is good. It could be as simple as a coded response to a telepathic handshake request. The telepaths may be able to do their work passively. Why have I been invited to a meeting about a Hellfire party? I don't know what that is, but I already know I'm busy that night. Okay then. And that is where the issue definitively ends. Moving on to Strikeforce, number 7. Where we left off, Strikeforce, while tracking down... Strikeforce, largely dealing with the Verdi, also has a guest. The actual leader of the Verdi, Count Ophidian. And while Burgett, Ophidian's former advisor, is leading the Verdi. Well, yeah. The whole thing is that Ophidian really just wants to find a home for his people. So the issue begins on Monster Island, formerly known as Staten Island, New York. And a mysterious suited woman is leaving a monster bar called the Laughing House. And she apparently frightens all of the patrons just by being there. Though no one knows who she is. Meanwhile, a foul stench has reached the nose of none other than the King of Monster Island, Deadpool. First of his name, King of Monster Island. And well, it's something in their sewer system. So Deadpool goes to investigate and finds Strikeforce. And basically says, "Oh hey, cool, fellow monsters, welcome." With his reasoning being Blade, a vampire. He actually makes a point to say, "Hey, I used quotes. A cartoon devil, goatee and all." Deadpool also compliments Hellstrom on his goatee. A witch. A for-real buster of ghosts. Kiss of the Spider-Woman. A guy who sometimes loses his memories and kills people. Total werewolf vibes. And the former queen of the Ookie Spooky Dead. But he has no idea who the other guy, as he puts it, the elf guy. Ophidian basically said, hey, just you're the king, you can of this realm, so by all means you can you may beseech any knowledge you like of me, but please do not make me tell you my name and who I am. It will only bring sorrow to you and yours. Of course, this makes Deadpool want to know even more. Angela tells him that no, he really doesn't. There's also a nod to Blade 3, or to Blade Trinity in this, with when Deadpool first comes upon Strikeforce asking Blade if he'd been in any good movies lately. The last he saw, he was hunting down Parker Posey and some sexy dude, but he gets cut off. And we also get a look at, Monster Island sewer system, which is, a monster. Spider-Woman largely wants to just get out of there. Mainly so she can get back to her kid. Though Deadpool has put the team up in what was a pizzeria. So she goes to investigate in the hopes of finding Bridget. Starts asking around using her pheromones, which, the patrons of the bar aren't digging the pheromones. But she's also not the only one trying to gather intel, as Winter Soldier and Blade are trying to do the same. Though the local monster mafia don, because that's totally a thing, and why not, would prefer it if the team left. They make the populace feel unsafe. Angela talks a bit with Ophidian. Basically kind of saying, giving him some advice. Apparently, he wanted to talk to her. But he does know why the group was chosen, and replaced. which is something that Angela suspected. She also suggests that Ophidian keep that to himself for the moment, used as a bargaining chip. Back at the monster bar, things are not looking good for Blade, Bucky, and Spider-Woman. One of the patrons makes a bet that, as she puts it, the pretty one could win in a fight. Spider-Woman immediately presumes that she's the one being referred to as the pretty one, but no, it's Bucky. So, yeah, the three of them fight, and Spider-Woman actually totally kicks Blade and Winter Soldier's asses. With the Dawn, Dawn also passing on his cards, saying, we've got a thriving professional league starting here on Monster Island, and he would love for Spider-Woman to be a part of that, even though she isn't a monster. Though she said, that's not what the king says. And then as they leave, it turns out that Bridget's been leaving spores all over the island. And so she appears and does some negotiating with the team, with Blade, Bucky, and Spider-Woman. And the spores are also at the pizza place. So it's decided that, okay, yeah. Angela decides, yeah, alright, fine. Take him, go. But not everyone is okay with that, so Wiccan and Hellstrom hold the portal open, and the rest of the team then goes through and ends up in Svartalheim. Presumably Svartalheim. Yeah, Svartalheim. It's Svartalheim. Svartalheim. And yeah, the remaining Dark Elves are not exactly happy to see the heroes. The next morning, Deadpool shows up to basically, offer breakfast because, well, Strikeforce didn't show up at the continental breakfast he provides, so. But no one's there, and also there was a bit of a mess from the spores, so he admits that he's not mad, he's just disappointed. And that's where the issue ends. Also, there was a nod and all in his blathering to being a part of it. A few covert forces over the years. And moving on to Marvel #1. So, Marvel #1 appears to be the further cashing in by Marvel on Marvels. So we begin with the Overture. It appears, basically Nightmare is narrating. He's basically taking over. He's using the dream world to take over the real world. Which then gives way to our first tale, Spider-Man, Make My Day. Basically, Spider-Man thinking about everything he has to go through, and how the various ways he's used science to help with various problems, like how to make sure he could use his webbing to insulate himself from Electro, make it stickier to actually work on Sandman. Yeah, as he puts it, as his baddies got deadlier, his webs got smarter. Well, big thing is he's fighting Rhino, but Rhino says our day is met, which, okay, that's kind of weird. So they're duking it out. Then we cut to him talking with Mary Jane, and he's spending a lot. I mean, the canisters for the primary component for his webbing, he buys it wholesale at $800 a pop. And she kind of And Mary Jane kind of says that maybe you need to cut back on the webs. You know, you're using you just, sling them out all willy nilly like, and back to fighting the Rhino again, saying our day is met. He's saying it a lot though, so something's up. Then he ends up tossing him into the river and pounding on him, and then throwing him his unconscious body out of the river. A couple of cops find him and ask, who do you think? Who do you figure KO'd the Rhino? Also, it's mentioned that during this altercation with the Rhino, he's run out of webs. One of the cops suggests it's probably one of the it's probably Spider-Man because, well, the Rhino's one of his bad guys, right? Though the other one says that it's probably Daredevil that did it. You don't have that all that webbing all over the place, so. Which makes the cop then change his mind. No, it wasn't Spider-Man then. It was probably Luke Cage. And as he's heading home, however, and runs into Mary Jane, who tells him, he's like, you ran out of webs. I'm really sorry. And she got scared. So yeah, that basically, hey, I was wrong. Don't cut back on the webbing. You need it. It's part of who you are. Which is where the story ends. Moving on to The Boy and the Brute. Taking place at some point between Avengers number... Some point after Avengers number 4, but before Avengers number 16. The Avengers are working with working on fine-tuning an invention of their benefactor, Tony Stark, whose bodyguard, Iron Man, is also present. It's an image projector. It projects not just physical forms, but thoughts as well. However, the first thing that Rick Jones thought of when it was used on him was the Hulk. Uptown, however, the Hulk is on the run from police, the army, you name it, they're after him. Makes his way, and he misses Rick Jones, who was always able to help him hide. And so, he attacks the Avengers. The machine gets smashed, and it interacts with the Hulk, who then creates Hulk versions of the Avengers. And the Avengers are actually going to fight them. It's like, yes, they're illusions, but they're still illusions that can pack a punch. And so, they continue their fight. With the Hulk telling his Hulk Avengers to disassemble, as in disassemble the Avengers. However, Rick manages to talk Hulk down, get rid of the Hulk Avengers, and Rick leaves with him, and eventually the Hulk reverts to Bruce Banner, who continues to, go make his way alone. And Cap suggests to Rick that, maybe it would be best if the Hulk was captured. And he also lauds Rick for doing the right thing. And Cap's not the only one who knows that Rick did the right thing, but the Hulk knows. But he's pretty sure that the Hulk knows as well. And so we're back with Nightmare. It turns out Nightmare's not talking to the reader, but rather to the astral form of one Dr. Stephen Strange, whom he formally welcomes to his nightmare. And that is where the issue ends. Moving on to Strange Adventures, #1. Okay, so, Strange Adventures. Strange Adventures is a just started DC Black Label miniseries focusing on Adam Strange. Adam Strange is a sci-fi based hero, DC hero. The whole thing is, I believe he was an archaeologist, and he got zapped to the planet Ran by a device known as the Zeta Beam. And this would happen quite often, so you go back and forth, but he was the hero of Ran. And so we begin, apparently, Adam's written a book called Strange Adventures, detailing what it is he went through in Rand's war. And it's become kind of a big deal, and then he gets zapped to Rand. We get some just kind of, him showing up on Rand and dealing with a race known as the Picts. And it turns out he's going to be interviewed on television, and again with the book signing. We also get to see him fighting off the Picts, but the battle is sadly not going well. There's one of the signings, a guy shows up, calls Adam scum, a liar, asks, how many Picts are dead because of him, tortured, left in cages because of him, how many graves has he dug, and it got picked up a bit. We see some people filming the altercation. We see more of the battle against the Picts. Back on Earth, Adam is awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. Afterwards, apparently his wife informs him he's getting emails from political people, the Hill and the White House. Everyone wants to run for something from a little local mayor to presumably to the presidency, and so he's a hero. They want to give him everything. We have some more flashbacks to the battle. Then another signing. It turns out that the guy that came after him has been killed. And it's looking like maybe it was Adam who did it. However, something happened with their daughter, with Elena and Adam's daughter Alina, during the evacuation. Adam holds a press conference saying, "Hey, some things have come up," and he ran as an oasis of peace and freedom, and he fought for that peace and stood for that freedom, served in the conflict, and he denounces these tales of dishonor and misconduct as being lies, vicious, unfounded, corrupt lies. But talking heads are talking heads. On a rooftop, Adam meets with Batman, handing him his laser gun. Basically say, hey, I didn't do it. Investigate me. Investigate all I did. You know, show the world that he's innocent. However, apparently Batman said no. He said that since they were old friends, he couldn't be the judge. It wouldn't be right, and people wouldn't care or believe it. So he asked Batman to find him someone. We get more of the as the royal family is leaving Rand, the Zeta Beam begins to wear off on Adam, and he begins to phase back to Earth as the ship they're on lifts off. Well, back in the present, Adam, the detective that Batman has found to look into Adam, has arrived. And for some reason, picture of Adam, his wife and daughter, has blood all over it. Turns out that the detective is none other than Michael Holt, Mr. Terrific. And he wants to sit down and ask a few questions of Adam after having read his book. There's also a bit from Carmine Infantino, one of the big old names at DC. I had 3 different layers of city where they lived on Rand. The city was built on layers. Of course, the ground was dead. It was gone. It was very interesting, the premise. The scientists of the period said, we've got to build an area where it's pollution-free, smoke-free. So I built cities in layers. And they got smaller as they went up. And they floated above the ground, which is clever, I think. That's where the issue ends. And on the back here we've got, you're a hero. They want to give you everything. So far, it's interesting. There have been other interesting takes on Adam Strange. I'm fairly sure there was one that called into question whether or not Adam actually went to Rand in the first place. But it was probably the case of, okay, yeah, someone's messing with him to make him think that he's crazy. Because with all the other tales that involve him, or, involving him and all, the biggest one I can think of off the top of my head would be the Rand-Thanagar War, which is part of the build-up to Infinite Crisis, about 14, 15 years ago. But basically, Hawkman, Hawkwoman, Adam Strange, and basically having to prevent a war or stop a war between Rand and Thanagar. Alright, and our final book of the week, Daphne Byrne, number 3. Where we left off, Daphne and her brother had begun speaking, and also Daphne had written a letter to a man who debunks charlatans that claim to have ties to the supernatural, such as the medium that Daphne's mother is going to. So Daphne talks with her brother. The idea being, and she says, play a game with him. They take turns asking each other's questions in sets of 3. Must answer truthfully or pay a forfeit. So she asks him first, is she dreaming him? He explains that he's as real as she is. Then she asks where he comes from. He says that her world is his. But he wasn't born of flesh, not like she was. Then she asks if he ever wishes he were like her, as apparently sometimes she catches him looking at her and he looks as though he wants to eat her. And he doesn't answer. But she says, he'll have to speak up unless he means to forfeit. But he asks what's the forfeit, and she says she's actually never played this game before. But he says, but you know what the forfeit is. It's supposed to be a kiss. And it looks like they're about to kiss when Daphne's mother comes in. Apparently, one of Daphne's classmates, Minnie, was attacked. Claims she was attacked by Daphne. Though Minnie also says, there were two other girls that saw it happen. Daphne swears that they're lying. I mean, they're not exactly. It's complicated. And Daphne's mother also reprimands her for sitting on a made bed, as it's not ladylike. Beds are only for sleeping, after all. But there does appear to be faces in the darkened portions of the bed. So, and she's, anyway, the maid, Noni, is now tasked with walking Daphne to school and walking her home. But apparently this is preventing her from going to talk to Mr. Brooke about debunking the medium. And then later on, Daphne's mother's approached by a man who is wanting her to pay her debts. She's 90 days in arrears. And he says, maybe if Mrs. Byrne gives him a kiss, maybe he'll let the debt go. And he says, I've heard what they say about lonely widows. And he also explains that might be all she has left to sell before long. So she goes to the medium, and also apparently one of the others is, well, making sure that yes, the medium is a con artist, and apparently with a group of con artists. So some tea is made, and Mrs. Byrne's cup is spiked with something. They talk, and apparently, at school, Daphne is able to basically splatter everyone with ink where she runs. At the medium, Mrs. Byrne is said to be a bit tired. However, Mr. Fleming is there as well, and apparently Mr. Fleming and the medium were talking with Mr. Fleming's late wife Eliza, and Eliza said, Althea, Mrs. Byrne, needs his help. And soon enough, however, Mrs. Byrne passes out. And a whole group then comes in, lifts the couch she's on, and carries her away. Meanwhile, Daphne has gone to Mr. Brooke. However, it appears the medium is using pig's blood to fingerpaint sigils on Althea, and has stripped her down to her undergarments. And they are consecrating Althea's body. The dear Lord, the most beloved ruler of earth, king of the living and of the dead. But basically, she's being offered up to them, or to whoever this is, to make a child. That's where the story ends. Next up, we've got chapter 16 of Sea Dogs. Where we left off, the HMS Havoc was coming up on two Spanish ships. However, in the storm, the wolves, who have been making short work of the crew, well, they are also approaching the gap. As it says, as lightning sears the sky, Lieutenant Reed finds himself confronted with a monstrous enemy, the terrible creatures that have killed so many of the sailors aboard the HMS Havoc, a trio of wolves with the bearing and shape of men. Lieutenant Reed is promptly slaughtered, his body thrown into the captain's quarters. The captain then looks up and sees one of the wolves just above as the storm intensifies. And that is where the issue ends. And that's it for this week's roundup. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the search box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.